evening. St Kilda Gatehouse has been working with women involved in street sex work for over 20 years. This image tells a powerful story. In this image we can see a woman who is clearly homeless, living in a squat. She has drug addiction and she's living in extreme poverty. And these are the stories that are familiar to us each day. When we listen to the stories of the women at Gatehouse, the common number we hear is 13. This is the age when their life takes a turn. This is the age that they often run away from home, or they're taken into child protection by services, or they form a friendship with a gang on the streets, or an older male befriends them, only to take advantage of their vulnerability. It is around this age that most of them start their involvement in commercial sexual activity. And it's not until decades later that Gatehouse becomes involved in their lives, when the issues of addiction, homelessness and abuse are deeply entrenched. So it was these stories that have motivated Gatehouse to initiate the Young Women's Project. What if we could reach the girls at this age and turn their lives around? To stop that trajectory into what we know can lead to a life of pain on the street, further abuse and addiction. What if we could have reached this woman at 13? So we began this journey by receiving some seed funding, and we scoped out where the issues were happening in Melbourne and what young girls were being affected. And as we scratched the surface, the full scale of the issue became apparent. As we engaged with youth services, police, researchers, child protection, we discovered the situation is worse than it has ever been, and it is concentrated in Dandenong. We know that exploitation of young girls and women has occurred for decades across Melbourne. However, what we're seeing in Dandenong is different. It's organised, it's very widespread, and it's devastating. Those being targeted are young girls who have already experienced trauma in their lives, placed in care because their home environment is too violent and unstable. And it's those young girls that are being targeted by older men who groom them, assault them, and trade their bodies through organised rings. So we hear stories of a girl being held captive in a room and raped by multiple men over 3 days, and of another who's repeatedly targeted before she can even leave her home each day. So the police, DHS, they have stepped in, and they are making a remarkable difference and significant headway into disrupting these organised rings. But what is lacking is the rebuilding of a young girl, the support for a young girl to grow and to thrive beyond these traumatic experiences, and to stop that trajectory into further abuse and exploitation. So armed with extensive research and speaking to young girls and speaking to those who have survived and thrived, we have developed the Young Women's Project. Tonight we're inviting you to be part of this very important project. Based in Dandenong, the Young Women's Project will provide a safe space for young girls and women, a centre, a place that fosters a sense of belonging, ownership and contribution, and that connects to already existing community resources. As we know from what we do in St Kilda, a young girl must feel safe, valued and worthwhile before she can begin to rebuild her life, develop her inner resilience and pursue her hopes and dreams. If you can cast your mind back to when you were just entering your teenage years, what were the things that were important to you? Who were your friends? What holidays were you taking with your family? What were your dreams? One of the young girls that we've been introduced to and have started engaging with is an 11-year-old girl, Ruby. At 11 years old, Ruby is living in residential care with no parental involvement. She's completely alone. She already has drug and alcohol issues at 11 years old. She doesn't go to school. And in this vulnerable state, she has been targeted by a pedophile ring who are trading her body. So at 11 years old, Ruby fell pregnant to one of her abusers. This is a lost little girl who is trying to find her place and her way. But we see a spark in Ruby's eyes. Her eyes light up when she's given an opportunity to express her ideas and her talent. And we believe, honestly, that there is hope and possibility for Ruby. We need to act now. As I shared earlier, the common number we hear is 13. The other number that is familiar to us is 25. Sadly, that is around the age that a young woman loses her life. After being on the streets for over a decade, we have seen too many young women lose their lives at the hands of another or from drugs or suicide. And we can do better. As a society and as a community, we can reach these girls earlier. So what am I asking of you tonight? What can you do to change the past of these young girls? The centre we're setting up needs a therapeutic support worker, someone with the skills, understanding and expertise to help shape these young lives. A therapeutic support worker who understands the needs and behaviours of those whose lives have been so marked by trauma. And a therapeutic support worker who can use a number of ways to engage these young girls beyond the clinical model of therapy. For $10,000, we can put a therapeutic support worker in that centre working with young girls for 1 day a week for a whole year. For $20,000, we can put her in for 2 days a week working with young girls for the whole year. For $50,000, those young girls will have access to a worker for the whole week. Thank you.